We're rolling now.
We're good? Okay. So I'm going to tell you the story of how I invented this medium, how it came to me, what led up to it, how I invented it, and then why I continued on to do a whole bunch of pieces of work. It only started about 10 years ago, so I wasn't young when I started this. Then I'm going to show you all the rest of the pieces of work I've done, quite a number of them. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the influences in my life that affect my art and affect my sense of design. The things that I saw, the experiences I had that caused me to want to create something in my new medium. And then once I had started it, I was so excited and interested in what I could do with this medium. As I go about my life, I would see things. I go, oh, that looks really cool. I want to do that, or I want to do that. And it led to this whole body of work. Then I'm going to talk a little bit throughout that about design choices, why I did one thing or another thing, and I will ask you for some input as we go along, okay? Because my work is largely abstract. I mean, it's not representational. You couldn't say exactly what the thing might be. So it'll create in your mind, in your memory, images. So I'm going to ask you, show you a piece of art and say, what does that remind you of? What image does that bring to you? So if you can just shout it out really loud, that would be helpful so I don't have to work at it, okay guys? Let me see. I think we're ready to go. So we're going to start right off with I'm going to ask you for some impressions. So this is the first piece of work I ever did, okay? So it's abstract, so I'm going to ask somebody, any idea from this side, what images, what suggestions or things you see there? Loud. A bear? Okay.
Kind of like a spider.
Spider?
Fish.
Fish. Interesting. You'll see why one of those was close to where I started and where we're going, but it's subtle. Okay. So I was doing my workaday life, and I went into a coffee shop, and there was a pamphlet there, and the pamphlet was for a place called the Float House. And they were making an art book. And so they said, we will give you 2 free floats in the Float House if you make us a piece of art, which we'll photograph and put in a book. So I said, I want 2 free floats. But before I go further, has anybody ever been to the Float House? Does anybody know what the Float House is, or what yes?
Is it where you float in like a dark room in water?
Yes, it's sensory deprivation tank. It's like an enclosed space with water with a lot of salt in it, so you float really, really high. Body temperature, so you can't feel cold or heat. It's dark, so you can't see anything. It's silent, so you can't hear anything. So all your senses are shut down, okay? All you're left with is what's in your mind. And you just chill there, sort of relax, meditate, whatever you want to do for an hour or so, and then you come out, and it sort of puts you into a different state of consciousness. It's meditative, it's interesting, very interesting. So I wanted to try this, so I did. This is that's a pod. You can see it's a really nice fiberglass shell, beautifully lit, and that's how it's like very spa-like environment. This is the pamphlet I saw. So I had my 2 floats, and what they wanted you to do was to be inspired by your float to create a piece of art. That's where your inspiration was to come from, okay? So I did my first float, it was wonderful, I enjoyed it, but I had no inspiration. Like, I just couldn't think of what I'm going to do. And also, I was not really an artist. I really can't paint, can't photograph. Well, I can photograph, but that's not my, so how am I going to do a piece of art? So then I did my second float, and it was very nice. I enjoyed it, and I did get into a slightly altered state of consciousness where colors were very crisp and clean, and things looked beautiful, like when you sunny day, you can see the leaves. Anyway, I was in a very state. And after your float, you have a shower. It's a really nice, beautiful spa-like space with a shower. And the shower happened to have a big curved piece of glass on one side of it. So I'm showering, thinking, what am I gonna do, what am I gonna do? And I noticed water, I'm getting ahead of myself, rippling down the glass, okay? And I said, I like that. That is kind of cool. I want to do that. All of a sudden, I was inspired. But how the heck can, if you're not a painter and you sculpt whatever, how are you going to capture that in a piece of art that they can photograph? So I was puzzled, but at least I had a starting place. So, how did I go from this to this? Somewhere the idea came to me to use stones on glass. Okay. The glass was obvious from the curved glass of the shower with the water running down. And somehow, and I'm not sure where the idea came from, but out of the blue, I thought I'll use pebbles, I'll use stones. So stones on the glass. So I started collecting my stones from the beach. But how am I going to use these stones to do what I wanted to do? I know that I like regularity, grids, things that are symmetrical. Okay? I also saw that curves would be pretty beautiful too, because water's curvy, it's not straight lines, it's not grids. So I played with the stones and I arranged for drips of water. So okay, this is, I'm on something here. I've got a starting place. This fantastic artist, which I encourage you to look up to be inspired, he's fantastic. He cracks these rocks. And I thought, I like that cracked rock. I'm gonna do that. So I was on the beach collecting rocks one day. And you know, on a West Coast beach, there are big stumps and curved logs. There was a big curve in a log there. So I took a flat stone and I put it on the log. And I took another big stone, bam! It cracked. I said, whoa, this is cool. So I cracked a bunch more rocks. I took them home and I glued them together with a little space in between. So now I had a rock that stayed with a crack in it, and I could design with it. I told you the story about cracking the rocks. So now I had all the elements that I knew somehow I want to incorporate into a piece of art. The grid, the curves, the drips, and the cracked rocks. So I sort of mixed them all up and started to lay them down. And I had this thought about energy. I wanted something to do with energy in the center, some powerful kind of force for some reason. And the cracks sort of captured that for me. I like the curves, so I added curves. A grid, there's a certain regularity and grid-like element there. And my drips. And there's my final piece. And I mounted the glass an inch away from the white board. And I used these stones. I cut a little groove in the stones and glued them to the board to hold the glass about an inch away. And you can't see it in this photo, but there are shadows. Because it's a little bit away, when light hits it, you get shadows of the stones as well. And what I really like about that effect is when the time of day changes or the lights turn on or off, the shadows change too. So you get this 3D effect and it's different. So it's sort of like a painting in that you can hang it on a wall, but it's not a painting. It's not exactly a sculpture, but it's 3D. So they took a picture of it. They put it in their book. Somewhere I have a picture of the book. Anyway, they did, it's on page 99 of the book of the Float House, so that was cool. So after I was done, I thought, well, this one turned out really well. I can't stop now. I'm gonna have to keep doing this stuff because it's fun and people seem to like it. So I'll sort of show how I made it. So these are the stones before they're glued. They're just arranged on a whiteboard. So I got my design sort of organized, right? Okay, now this is what I like. You can see this stone is out of place because it's not been glued in yet. I photograph the stones, however they're laid, and I blow them up to life size. Then I put a piece of glass on top of the photo. Then I pick the stone up, put some glue on it, and put it on exactly where it's supposed to be according to the photo on the glass. So I glue all the stones to the glass. And then I mount the glass. See, there's the stones. There's the photo on the right underneath the glass. And I glue them on. And the picture on the left, you can kind of see that there's some shadows coming in there because the lighting is from a different way. And there's the book that they published, which I have in my workshop. So, what am I going to do next? I wanted to create more art, so I just kept going. I collected more stones and started to make some more pieces. So I'm going to ask you for some quick suggestions, okay? This was my second piece. Any images that you see in this piece? Clouds?
Like a wind chime.
Pardon?
A wind chime.
Wind chime?
A bird.
A bird.
Like an alien bird as well.
I didn't think of that. This was a purely abstract piece. But people will tell me as diverse suggestions. They say somebody saw Egyptian, somebody saw alien, say all sorts of things they saw, and I just liked that word, and I kind of, so I picked the name for it, although I didn't start out with any of that in my mind. Here's another one. Somebody at the back. What do you see here? Yeah? Starfish? Is that what you said? Yeah? Louder? Tentacles. Yeah? One more? Chromosomes. I tried to do chromosomes one, but that's not this one. Waves. I like surfing and breaking waves, the way they break. So I tried to, that was my, okay, I'm gonna do a surfing wave that's breaking, right? Tried it, didn't like it, didn't work. So then I just kept adding and adding and adding till I got this. So you can sort of see there's waves, but it's not waves. That, I still call it waves. But that's why, when I say it's not representational, I might start with an idea, but it isn't what I end up doing, and that's not necessarily what people see, because they see something quite different. Which excites me when people see really different things than what I intended or had in my mind. Another one. Who hasn't made a suggestion yet?
Maybe like a tie or a giraffe.
A giraffe. Animals, anything else? Anybody? One more?
Like
Yeah.
a dragonfly.
Dragonfly. There's a close-up of that center rock.
Almost reminds me of like a water treatment facility or something.
Water. Like that. Water treatment pipes going everywhere. Oh, wildlife. Cosmic. For some reason, after I built it, totally randomly, because I was really struck by this stone, was different than all the other stones I'd ever collected. And then I sort of added and added and added till I got that. I had this thought of energy. Energy seems to run through a lot of my pieces. Cosmic is like cosmic rays, cosmic energy, either going out or shooting in, and I can't really tell what's happening, but that's what drew me to calling it cosmic. Here's another one. Now you can see I arranged a whole bunch of cracked rocks. And sometimes when a rock cracks, it cracks in 3 places. This one here, and this one here. And up there too. So I was just playing with the rocks, and when I came to a 3-way split, I split the chain. And this sort of grew organically. And you will see, I have some pictures later. This is the finished piece. You'll see some pictures I show of its progression. Nope, wrong way. Cosmic carp. Again, those things to me were like cosmic rays or something shooting down on a guy. Although the name is really weird. It wasn't intended to be, but it looks like a guy doing a tennis serve. Right? The guy going back, hitting a tennis serve. And that's why the court comes from a tennis court. And the cosmic comes from the rays, and I just gave it a crazy name. This is how I started out. That's before it's glued, just laying on a whiteboard. And I take pictures as I go. So in case I get rid of it and start again, if I really like what I did before, I can repeat it, because it's hard to remember old designs. So then I added to it, and I didn't like that, so I took it out, and I added this, and I added that, and then I added that. And I said, that's it. And as a matter of fact, if you'll see, this is my shirt. Okay. This is one of my favorite pieces. It's called Waves, and there's much more going on in this, as you'll see, than meets the eye, because it's pretty simple. It's got a curve going on this way, and you can see the shadows. But sinking stones. And you can see the stones start out on top of the glass, and then they sink through the glass, into the board, and then back out again. So you have the curves going this way, and you also have the stones sinking this way. And it's hanging right now in somebody's house in a long hallway. So when you first come in, you see it way down on the edge. So you see the stones sinking through if you imagine that upright, that's how you see it sort of first. On edge, you see that. And then as you walk along and start to look at the front, you see this aspect. So depending on where you look at and how you see it, you see different things, which I really like. And the sinking stones seems to impress people. I just cut the stone in half with the tile saw, glue it on each side of the glass. That's how that works. Okay, has anybody ever been to Bali? No? This is a temple in Bali, and I visited a number of these temples when I was in Bali, and I was really intrigued by one feature. If you'll notice, the surface is very rough and very has a lot of carvings. Like it's carved stone, volcanic stone, very intricate, very designed. It's very beautiful. But one thing is not, and that is this right there and right here. It's flat, like you cut it with a laser or something. And I thought, well, that's very odd for a very ornate, and they're all like, most of them are all like this. They have an ornate construction, but this very, but it actually bothered me. I thought, oh, why did they do that? It unsettled me. I couldn't figure out why they did it. And to this day, I still don't know. But that's what grabbed my attention. So I photographed and remembered it. So years later, when I'm doing merit, I go, something about that is interesting, and I got to do that. So I attempted, and I have done this in a piece of art. And so I did it with the flat sides, the stones. That's my son. It's hanging in his house. And it was very hard to get that flat aspect. Putting the stones to do the design was not too bad, because I just put a photograph and glued the stones on top. So I had to turn it sideways and clamp a board to it, and then cut some stones in half with a flat saw, and I laid all the stones down this way until I got them right, and then I glued them to the glass. That, by the way, is a skylight from somebody's house. It was leaking, so we had to replace all the skylights. He said, "Do you want the skylight?" I said, "Sure, I'll take it," because mounting glass is actually a pain, and this glass comes all mounted in a nice thing. So that's why I took the glass, sat in my backyard for years, and I said, "Oh, I know what I'll do with it." And it's big, it's 4 feet by 4 feet. Nitnat. Anybody been to Nitnat Lake? It's out past Cowichan Lake if you go west. Okay, drive up island, past Cowichan Lake, there's Nitnat Lake way over there. And it's a very long lake. So I'll tell you a story about how this piece came to me. I was camping on the beach, beside the lake, right, from here to the back of the room from the lake. And in the morning, the lake is dead calm. It's like a mirror. Sunny, it happened to be a beautiful sunny day. And I'm sleeping there about 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning. I'm sleeping on the beach and I hear bang, bang, bang. And I sit up and I look up the lake, nothing. I look down the lake, nothing. What the heck? So I lay back down again. I hear again, bang, bang, bang. I sit up and I look down the lake, nothing. I look up the lake, and around the corner of the lake comes an indigenous dugout canoe with about 20 paddlers paddling along. And then another one. And then another one. And behind them, if you know, the wake a boat makes is these sort of V-shaped trails behind the boat on a mirror-shaped lake, a mirror surface lake. It was unusual, and it inspired me. I thought, this is amazing. If I was here on this beach 5,000 years ago, that's what I would see. It's exactly what I was seeing. It was like time traveling, It was pretty rich experience. So it just locked itself in my memory, because something that impressive, you remember it. And it stuck in my brain until I started to do my art. So you can see, this is one of my more representational pieces. They are sort of recognizable canoes with wakes and the shorelines of the lake. So, but if I hadn't told you that, you may or may not. You might get the boat image. But that was pretty, oh, and by the way, when I finished the piece, I gave that to the Dididant band to hang in their school, because paying back for my use of their beautiful lake over the years. And a couple years ago, this is what you actually could see. A friend of mine took these pictures on the lake of paddlers. Next piece, mollusks. You notice that there's a theme of water. Water is a kind of theme that runs through a lot of my pieces of art. And there's one other theme that'll come out later. And this one, I started with this photo on the left. I just liked that photo so much. I said, that's great, I want to do this black and white, I want to do it with my stones. But how can you do black and white stones? So I changed the photo to a negative. So then the interesting part was black, which I used the stones. So I blow the picture up, fill it up with stones, and make my piece of art. And you would really never know that's what that was. But you do, because I'm just okay. So there are several different types of stones. All the ones you've seen so far are the pebbles on the left, the beach stones, come from Dallas Road. There's sandstone, which is very flat, different kind of stone. It's crumbly a little bit, and you can shape it slightly. And then slate, which is harder, which is actually, that stone is actually what old blackboards used to be made of, was slate. So I started with these kind of stones, and you've seen a number of those pieces. And then Hornby Island has wonderful beaches and wonderful slate, so I used this stone. And this is my first piece I made with this type of stone. Anybody want to venture an image that comes to them that this reminds them of? Yeah? A boomerang. Good. Yeah?
A mountain.
I
Mountain.
was gonna say the same thing.
Okay. Alien font. I like fonts, I like graphical design, you know, fonts are the letters on a computer. And I just searched online, alien fonts. And all these different images came up. I said, oh, I like them, they're pretty cool. So, they all look good, and I thought, well, this one over here, it's the easiest for me to do with my stones. So I printed out the letter X, which is not, in fact, on that. That says something else, which we'll come to, because there's another piece that has, that is from. Anyway, I printed out one black and white, did my stones with it, and that's how I got that previous piece. Whoops. Oh yeah. It turns out what I thought was an alien font, which is this one, because that's what Google said it was. No, wrong way, sorry. It turns out to have a whole different origin story. You're gonna have to read quick because I gotta move on through the thing, but it's a secret writing from women in China, I believe. And they made this script that nobody else could read. It's like a code. Anyway, it looked alien enough to me, so I used it. So there it is before I made it. Took a picture of it, put the glass on top of it, and then glued the glass to it. You can slightly see the shadows there as well. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, good. Okay. So, I liked the font thing, but I thought, well, I don't want to do just one letter, I want to make a message. So, I wrote a message in my font, which is that one there, and then I took my pebbles and I did it in stones, but I wasn't happy with it. Just didn't do it. One of the problems was it looked too much like English writing. Like that looks too much like a D, that looks too much like a Y. No, I want abstract, I want images, something else. So what am I gonna, I gotta change it somehow. What am I gonna do? So instead of making it printed letters, I thought I'll write cursive, it'll be script. So I added a whole bunch of extra connectors to it and sort of swooshed it around. And I came up with that, and I said, okay, now you wouldn't necessarily see it, but I was still seeing that D there. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I will turn it 90 degrees, and boom, now it looks okay. It's now alien font message, and the letter is it says Jim Multidio. Multidio is my website name, which is supposed to mean public in Portuguese, I think, because public art is what my goal eventually is. But I just wrote Jim Multidio, and if I back up, you can see that J-I-M looks like the D, and then M for Multidio is also D. So you can see those letters are the same. And there's another, some other letters are repeated as well. So you can see that you want to work on pieces until you get it right. And sometimes you can go too far and you have to back up, like when I had that tail on that one piece and I took it off. Or it can just change the orientation. And I think I was just walking, it was laying on my desk, and as I walked by, I looked at it in a different way. I said, oh, that looks much less like English. So that's why I turned it 90 degrees. So when you're designing or creative pieces, it's nice to let things sit with you for a while. Look at them, they'll sink in. They'll either improve with time, or they'll, nah, I gotta change it or fix it or throw it away. Alien drum. I took many of the same letters and arranged them on this circular piece of glass, which I happen to have. And I liked the piece so much, and it reminded me of a drum. And so that's why I called it Alien Drum, because it's alien font in a circular form. And so I have sort of a whole series of alien type images or pieces that follow from this. Here's another one. Anybody know Leonard Cohen's song, There Is a Crack in Everything? You know that one. And the next line is, that's how the light gets in. Which is, it's a great song if you ever want to listen to it. It's fantastic. And I just named it after the cracks. Again, playing with the stones, and one of them happened to have a 4-way crack in it. And that's how it ended up in this kind of a funny design. And then I added the little stones, and boom, it was done. Another circular piece. And there are all 3 of the round pieces. Clicker doesn't work very far. Okay. So, as you're doing art, doing creative enterprise of any kind, whether it's writing, mathematics, science, or making art, you'll often not go directly to where you're going to end up. You have to take a detour. So, I was displaying my art on Moss Street Paint-In, and this guy comes up and he says, I like your art. I think your art would go really well with my house. He said, yeah, I'd like you to make me a piece for outdoors. Outdoors might be, what? First of all, the board that I use is Medite chipboard. It's like the inside of furniture, painted all white. It's not going to hold up under the elements, so I knew this was going to be tricky. And he wanted many layers of glass, and he wanted mirrors, and he wanted a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm sort of trying to fend off this by, I said, well, how about I come up with a design for you? And I really had to limit him. I said, no, your house is very complex. And you'll see the picture of the house. It's a modern, fancy house with very complex, a lot of ornate stuff happening. He said, my art's really simple. I don't want to do a complicated piece. I think a simple piece would look a lot better on your complicated house. So I came up with this brilliant design, which I love. And the idea was meteors shooting down, and I gave myself, I'll do 2 layers of glass, busting through 1 layer of glass and sticking in the front layer of glass. So it was a great idea. So I mocked it up, I made a little model of it, showed him and his wife, and they said, they liked it. I said, great, go do it. So I started to do it full size, and it's pretty big. It's about 5 feet tall and about this wide. And it's sitting right now in his front yard on Dallas Road. As I started to make it with the meteors, it didn't look any good at all. Matter of fact, it looked terrible. Because, if you'll notice, my art, the energy, it comes from the arrangement of the stones. The arrangement of the stones gives it something. But meteors, as you think about a meteor shower, is random, right? So I had this great, in concept, the idea was great. Random stones breaking through glass, sticking in the front, it's going to be great. But when I did it, it didn't look, and I realized it was because there was no underlying principle of the arrangement of the stones, which is intrinsic to my art. It just doesn't, random stuff doesn't work well for me. So then I had to go back to him, and that was really difficult to say, sorry, I sold you on this idea, you like the idea, but I won't do it. I can't do it, it's not going to look good. We have to come up with another design. We tried other designs. I thought, okay, how about stars, constellations, you know, the Orion, Cancer, those guys. We tried that, still didn't look very good, because if you'll notice, those things are, you have to use a lot of imagination to see a guy with a sword and a belt, or a lobster, or whatever those guys are. Still didn't work, so I said, okay, I'm going to come up with a really simple design, which I did. And fortunately, he liked it, and we built it, and it turned out, this takes a detour. Well, the detour was when he wanted it complex, and then the U-turn was when I tried to build it in my simplified fashion, and the design didn't work, so I had to totally change the design. So there's like 2 steps to the creative process, which you will probably run into in your creative careers. That was the original idea, sort of the little model I made of the meteors smashing through the glass. I was figuring out how to make the smashed glass, how to implement that. So that's the piece, and you can see how I went from the random structure to a structure of. Actually, it's interesting because the big ones go down to smaller stones, and I put the big one at the bottom, and I went up to smaller stones this way. So there's sort of a flow of big to small going in different directions, and it's totally abstract. It doesn't really relate to anything, but I think I have some more pictures of. You can see the 2 layers of glass, which was a big leap for me to make a piece with 2 layers of glass. And the way I did the holes, those are not real holes in the glass. I photographed from the internet bullet holes in glass, blew them up, put them behind the glass, then I got a etching tool, and I etched the design into the glass of the cracks in the hole. And then I painted it all black, and I scraped off the black, and it only stuck in where I etched it. So that's how those the bullet holes look. And people kept asking me, "Are there real holes?" It does look like holes in the glass, but they're not. And the idea is, the stones did come through the glass, and then the size of the stones matches the holes. So somebody here must recognize this. Anybody know what the image
Come on,
is?
guys.
Pardon? Halo 3. Absolutely. Halo 3 video game. Some years ago, it's not that new of a game anymore. My grandson was into this video game big time and got inspired by the music behind this video game. This amazing orchestral Japanese creator did amazing music and totally turned my grandkid into music. But I liked the image of the logo, and I thought, well, I like that image so much, I'm going to do it in my art. So I did, and I used the Hornby Island slate. The 3 is kind of recognizable, but just happens to be a logo for a video game. And I think, yeah. And that right hand, that's a picture of the T-shirt, which I have at home. And that's how I got the design, was from the T-shirt. Here's another piece, and you can see I've discovered a new type of stone that had some marbling in it. How are we doing for time?
2:42.
Okay, another 10 minutes. Okay, better go quickly. I'm going to zip through a lot of pieces. Oh, this one's cool. This is actually a barcode, which I liked the image and thought, oh, I'll try to do it with my, and that's the actual barcode. I blew it up really big and did it with my stones, and then turned it upright. That's the piece, and that's sort of a close-up of it. It's kind of cute, but it's not great art. But some people think, well, that's cool, but I think it's sort of a novelty piece. But it was interesting, and it led me to another piece, which you'll see at the very end, which is interesting in a different way. And in case anybody's interested, that's the product that code relates to. Although I think over the years they changed products for that particular code, it gets reused, but it just turned out, because I only discovered this code about a year ago. Before the piece is probably 6-7 years old. I couldn't find what that number related to, but it's a cent detour. I was traveling in Baja, and I had an experience I really enjoyed the image that I saw, so I said I want to come home and do that in my stone. Anybody have a feeling for what impression they get from that?
Looks like there's like big towers with all the power lines.
It is. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, and when I'm driving down the highway in Baja, Mexico, it's a desert. It's very open and desolate, and you see these towers. And to me, they represented giants or aliens stalking across the land. Use your imagination. So I find the outline trace and did it with my stones. And I tilted it, and it's funny, the last class I did this with, people had a lot of different images besides E-Power. But if I didn't put the name there, it might have thrown you off a bit. This one, is anybody recognize the image? That is, that's from a famous calligrapher and poet from a long time ago. And I liked the image so much, I took a picture of it, did it with my art, and it's turned into, you see how you get something that's exact, and when you do it in a different medium, it makes it a little bit abstract because it doesn't, it's not as though I copied it with a paintbrush, but I did copy it. They say, good artists borrow, great artists steal. It's a quote from somebody, I can't remember who. Do you know who that quote's from, Andrew?
I know the quote.
It's for some, it's kind of makes you, it messes your head up a little bit when you think about it, but. Okay. This is a piece, that's my second public piece. It's actually hanging in the waiting room of the men's center up in Nanaimo. And somebody gave me a coffee table top. They were throwing their coffee table out. Jim, you want the glass? I say, sure, I'll take the glass. Sat in my corner of my room for a couple of years, and I thought, oh, I want to do something big for a change, and it's pretty big, and it's heavy. And again, I use the rocks to mount the glass rather than bolts and holding it from the thing. And it, I call it SS Seguro. When I that's the image I started with, was the spaceship. And I like that image because, again, the energy, I wanted to capture the energy shooting out of the rockets. That's why it's from the back. And then I did it in stones. Okay. And then it looked too much like a spaceship, right? I said, nah. So I just turned it upside down. Oh. There, see? I just turned it upside down. And then all of a sudden, it looked to me like a cactus. A cactus, you know, with three prongs. Oh, right. So that's why I gave it that funny name. SS for spaceship, and Seguro is the name of a type of cactus. So that's how that got that funny name. Mesa. Now, again, I've moved to a different type of stone, arranged in a different way. I stack a whole bunch of these flat slate stones together and glue them that way, and then I arrange them into an arrangement like this. And I'll show you the image that I started with. Mesa is the name of a formation in a desert. I thought, well, I wanted to do that. But as I'm building it, it didn't look right with just one. So now there's upside down on top, it's floating. And then I altered it again by making this little slit that goes all the way through all the pieces. I don't know why I like that, but somehow I did, and it gives it a little more hidden energy. Viper had a big snake-like element to it, and all I did was connect up all these marbly fissures in the stones. Energy weapon, like that one. And that image in the middle was so powerful that I did it as a standalone piece, and I did two of them. The top one is a positive image, a copy of it, and the bottom one is a negative image. So I did the stones around and left the image itself blank. Another abstract piece. Flat stones not stacked up. And this one is more peaceful. The energy weapon piece I had in my bedroom for a while, and my wife says, don't leave it in here, it's not good for sleeping. But this one we kept in the bedroom because it sort of has a more calm energy to it. And that energy weapon one is, I mean, it's vibrating. Crossroads. Okay. Again, I'm in Mexico, and a guy sees my code, my barcode piece, and he says, Jim, he says, you gotta do a QR code. And I said, oh, I'll try that, it might work. He says, but you have to make it work. I said, oh, come on, that's too hard. I don't know if it's gonna work with pebbles. You know, those QR codes are printed and they're squares. So I tried it, and in fact, it actually works. You can aim your camera at it, and boom, it'll come up with my website. And I also collected some tiles there too, so I just did the same code in some little tiles that were from a construction site. That I like the blue tiles, they're kind of cool. Okay, we're not doing bad for time. So design influences. You'll see, because I'm quite a bit older than you guys, some of this stuff goes back quite a ways, but I think some of it will be familiar to you. Just the things in my life that affected me deeply, and as I look back, I can see they've changed my life in subtle ways or big ways. So this one is the first vinyl album I ever had, and that picture of the wave, I lived in Toronto, by the way. I like that so much, it drew me to the West Coast. That's actually why I'm here on the West Coast to this day. I grew up in Toronto. They built a brand new city hall. At the time, that was when I was, say, your age, it was a brand new building, because the old building, you can't see it, but it was like a old style architecture. This was, at the day, modern architecture. And there was a lot of controversy. Some people didn't like modern architecture, so it was in the newspapers, made a big deal. And even for me, you notice how it's asymmetrical? The right tower is taller than the left tower. At the time, I was into regularity, and it bothered me that they weren't the same height. And somebody told me, you know, artistically, sometimes asymmetry is more interesting than symmetry. So I thought about it, and over time, I've come to see the wisdom of that. Sometimes asymmetry works better than symmetry. So that stuck in my brain. 66, there was a movie. It was one of the first surf films that ever came out. It was in 66. And the graphic design of this poster was quite new at the time. Album cover art. Albums were a big deal, influencing a lot of people's lives. Music was a big deal in the 60s. And very diverse style, from leaning towards psychedelic stuff on the left, graphic stuff on the right. Movies and movie posters. That had a big impression. Can't believe that was 25 years ago, 2001. That was quite the movie was way ahead of its time and made a big impression on me visually. And then I moved to the West Coast, and I went to Saturna Island, and I designed a geodesic dome. Does anybody know what a geodesic dome is? A structure made out of triangles. And this was the cardboard mock-up I made of it. And then I actually built it on Saturna Island, a little cabin, and hung out there. And it was, that was a time of my life where I was very contemplative. And I designed the house with, I had a sunrise window here, skylight up here. Actually, I'll go back. This is the sunrise window, sunset window, looking at the ocean window. So all those things you have to do when you design architecture stuck in my brain and has influenced other things, you know, the building skills and so on, which I need just to make my rocks not fall off, and to learn how to drill glass. And so that brings me to public art. Even before, I've only been doing this about 10 years, this rock art, but before that I realized that I dabbled in a few other things that had to do with public art. And I'm just going to run through a quick list of them. Back in '83, there was an art contest. View Towers had a big plywood wall around the construction site, and somebody organized an art contest to paint images on that wall. So it was up for a while. So I did this funny looking paint. You can see why I'm not a painter. I did this painter, but what blew my mind was somehow they picked it to go on the cover of Monday magazine, which was kind of cool. And this painting here was done by my daughter, who was 8 years old at the time. And I still have that in my house today, and it's a really great painting. It's, you know, that naive painting style of children sometimes is, a lot of adult artists try and go for that because it's so clean and beautiful. And I'm, of course, not, I'm attached to it because she's my daughter. And then Eaton Center, now called the Bay Center, also was a big construction site. They had a wall around it, and they did another art contest, so I went into that. And this is the painting I did, and I called it Goddess of Democracy, which, if you've heard of Tiananmen Square in China, was a big student protest that turned violent and has been suppressed, and it's a big story in politics of '89. But when I originally wanted, the theme of this contest was theater. Some theater must have sponsored it or something, so they had something to do with theater. So I wanted to do, my idea was street theater, or demonstration as theater. So I wanted to do this image, which is a famous image from that time, but it was too political, so the people running the contest wouldn't let me do it, so I didn't do that. I just did this one, and that actually is a huge statue that the students made somewhere, and they took it in, like these are people down here, so it's quite tall, and it's vaguely reminiscent of the Statue of Liberty, but not exactly. So enough to, you know, sort of be provocative to the Chinese authorities. But it was quite a big deal at the time. And then I did some cover designs for a magazine that I was involved in at the time. And I liked, it was a lot of fun to do, and we published a lot of them over the years. Then I dabbled in web design when web was really new. You can see it's pretty crude by today's standards, but in those days you had to do it by hand coding. There was no instant website design. And then this is my other daughter, by the way. She's an acupuncturist, so I just designed her a business card. I'm going to talk about the grandchild that helped me with the curves. When they were very young, about 6 years old, Luminera was a light lantern festival in Beacon Hill Park. So we went in that and we built this little sculpture thing, put candles inside, it glows at night. It was a cool festival. And I went in a number of them over the years. Years later, we did one called Robot Factory, where we built a more ornate structure, put candles inside it. Big fire hazard, but they had it all together in Beacon Hill Park. And then I built myself a vanity logo. Never had a business, but that's a logo. If I ever have a business, that'll be the logo. Actually, I even made a hat with that logo on the front of the hat. And then Hornby Island. I had been a student of Burning Man. I've been watching it for years. Went to Hornby Island with a bunch of guys, for a couple of weekends, and we built this amazing sculpture on the beach, and then we burned it down at night. Fortunately, in 2011, the next year, I actually got to go to Burning Man. That's before I go to Burning Man, I'll tell you. And this was another lantern festival. And this time I used light sticks. And I like this anime type character guy here. And I drew him out here. And then I crafted the light sticks, grew them on a huge piece of plastic about 10, 15 feet tall in that design, and hung it up on, you know, a baseball diamond has those that fencing so the balls don't go through. I hung it up on there so light goes through it. So either side you could see this character with glow sticks and light. That was a lot of fun doing that. Temporary, but it was fun. Then the next year I did actually get to go to Burning Man. And there's the man all lit up and right. And we did an installation. Burning Man is an art festival, essentially, beside all the wild and crazy stuff that goes on there, which was a lot of fun. it's an art festival, so people are expected to contribute. And my friend came up with this idea of doing empathy tent. So we built this, put this tent up, made it very nice inside with chairs and carpets and so on. And we had a gong outside, and if anybody wanted some empathy, they'd just ring the gong and come in, and we would sit with them and just listen and talk and hang out with them. And that was a really, over the festival, people would come in and talk to us, and it was a really nice way for us to contribute to this little installation and this art festival, but it didn't demand all our time. We had time to go away and experience the rest of the amazing creativity which you will see at Burning Man. And then, of course, this piece which you've already seen. Oh yeah, here's the, you can see the two layers of glass and the stones coming through the glass in that piece. And so, when I gave this lecture to a bunch of students some time ago, I was really excited by the possibility, and the reception was pretty good from the kids. So I decided to enter this talk into the Victoria Design Festival, which is happening on May 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Architects, landscape architects, graphic designers, and artists. There's events all over the city. Most of them are free. You just have to sign up and you can go to them. And so I entered into that, but I slightly added a little bit onto it. This was originally for students, but I've added this part on to talk to like design professionals and architects. And my goal in doing that is I would like my art to be in public places, like in waiting rooms or foyers of big buildings, but that's a very difficult market to crack because only the best artists with the most well-known get into it. So I've started this way by making a body of work so I can tell people what I do. Now I want to get my body of work in front of artists, in front of architects rather, who are there. The architects and developers are usually the people who pick and decide and buy art for public buildings. So that was my aim in getting this presentation in front of some design professionals. So I have a few more things that I would talk to them about this creativity, and it's totally relevant to you guys too. And the cross-disciplinary influences. You can see that I took inspiration from a float to make my art, or driving in the desert, or Burning Man, or whatever. All the things in your life will inform what you do in your art here, or where you end up living, or what you end up creating with your life, or the people that you like to hang out with. So this stuff is to help people think about how creativity can be augmented. Because say you're an architect and you build this building, you might get stuck in a rut, or even your own artistic stuff, or if you're a writing person doing poetry or writing scripts or designing anything. It's easy to get overly repetitious and get stuck in a rut. And what I'm trying to show you guys is that you can take U-turns, you can take corners, you can get inspiration from a lot of different areas in your life to help you move forward and have the courage to throw something away if it's not working, or adapt it, or let it sit for a while until you can see it working. And I'm just not sure how many more slides I have here. Yeah, this is my goal to get public work, and why I think my work would be particularly suitable to certain, especially modern buildings, because modern buildings can be cold because there's a lot of concrete and a lot of glass already, which has a cool element to it. But the stones in my art, it's sort of an organic thing that warms it up a bit, and you have the mixture of the organic material. You don't usually think of rocks as organic, but they are, because they're not manufactured, so to speak. and the glass, which is manufactured. So the two elements together sort of make, I think it would complement modern architecture. And it's simple, it's not too busy, so it won't detract necessarily from the business, but it can be contemplative for a space like that. Also, because it's not representational mostly, it's not going to cause controversy. If you notice, whenever public art goes up somewhere, somebody gets upset. Yeah, Andrew?
Just so you know, we have 1 minute left.
1 minute left? Okay. Well, we're almost done. Well, I think we're... Okay. We got the story of my invention, what I did next, design influences. I've given you, I think, all I got.
Jim, thank you so much. I just want to thank you for coming to the school and sharing your process with us, and that
Okay.
was fascinating. We really appreciate it.
Okay. Anybody have any questions before we run? That's okay. I'll hang around for all if anybody wants to ask anything. You can
Thanks
ask.
very much, Jim.
You've been a great audience.
Oh my goodness, it's so sad. Where is it? Bring it. Get that.
You were fun.
Oh, no, it's not.
Thanks for coming to the
Where is it?
Yeah, well, it's nice for these guys to be able to hear how it all came together.
Oh my
Isabella Weeks, I wasn't happy with the range of